Well, I'm Harish Padmanabha. I'm an old resident of Basavanagudi. That's where I grew up during the school days. And of course, now I live in Jayanagar. But, you know, Jayanagar is a child of Basavanagudi, you can say. It's an offspring of Basavanagudi. At least the part in which I am staying, in the first block. And I have, like everybody else of my age, fond memories of my growing up years there. It was not the information technology era. It was more basic and more earthy. We didn't sit on we didn't sit onto a computer and play computer games. My schooling was in Bishop Cotton School, and initially when my sister and I, when we were very young, we travelled by car, and later on by bus. Then I was for a 3-year term I was a boarder. Then I came back, and then I was, grown-up boy of the school, so I was cycling. And those days we could cycle through and through straight from Lal Bagh West Gate right to the other end. Even vehicles were allowed to pass through Lal Bagh. We have old memories of the Lal Bagh Lake, the tank bud, and going on to the other side. I even remember while coming back, if it had rained, especially during the northeast monsoons, the Lal Bagh Lake would overflow and trickle down to, or even flow down from the sluice gates to Crimbigal Road. And we would even catch small fish there. We'd take bottles while going to school, take our handkerchiefs and catch fish in that shallow waters running the shoulder of the road. These are all the old memories. And Basavanagudi has some iconic eating places. One of the most famous is Vidyarthi Bhavan. And there are the Gandhi Bazaar itself is a treat to watch. They say that the 8th cross of Malleshwaram is a cousin of Gandhi Bazaar. And you have the flower market. It's not the Western style of flowers with stalks. It's all flower heads used for puja purposes, and so on and so forth. And come any festival, the eve of the festival, you can't even put your foot on this Gandhi Bazaar main road. Then we had a lot of what they call condiment stores and puja items stores, things like that. All the houses there, we didn't have apartments at all, and they were all houses with big yards and compounds, a lot of trees. Our house itself was a large area of about an acre, our family house, and my grandfather had planted all kinds of flowering trees and shrubs. So we've even seen a green wine snakes, or whatever they call them, green snakes, which used to be common. And a lot of birds, woodpeckers, mynas, barbets, sparrows, of course. Now sparrows are not there at all. Bangalore has driven sparrows away. And parakeets coming out from the neem trees. These are my memories of my old Bangalore. Now, then after school, I went to a college, to a campus on the West Coast. I spent 5 or 6 years there and came back. Then I moved into my father's house in Ashok, the family house, Jayanagar. Jayanagar had a laid-back style there, again like Basavanagudi. There also the plots were all much bigger. There were no apartments there. The apartment culture in Bangalore, I think, started somewhere in the 80s, I suppose. 70s, there were apartments. One of the first apartments that I have seen is in Malleshwaram. the Saraswat Cooperative Society apartments, 2 or 3 of them. They didn't have any elevators. There were 3 or 4 floors. You had to climb the stairs and go. Those were the first apartments that I've seen. And later on, they sprang up in some of the old bungalows in the cantonment areas. It took a while for Basavanagudi to convert, and it's all traditional people. But suddenly we saw the locals selling off their properties and moving into suburbs. Banashankari, JP Nagar and beyond. If I can use the word, the immigrant society of India started coming in and buying up those properties and started building buildings cheek by jowl. Entire family staying in one building, 3 or 4 brothers with their wives and children and 3 or 4. And sorry to say that they were not really, I do not know whether they had the connect with the old Bangalore, because they had scant regard for following building bylaws of BBMPA. That's why you see buildings with hardly any setbacks. And one of the reasons why Bangalore has become like this. Then they say that Bangalore has become much hotter. True. When I was in school, I remember 4 months in a year we had to wear sweaters or pullovers. November, December, January, February at least, or more. And there used to be fog. When we had to go by car to school, the headlights had to be turned on. Those are the days. And I don't believe that the temperature has increased so much. It is the heat of radiation, I think. Depletion of water bodies. Bangalore had 300-400 large lakes, then a lot of ponds. As I know, when we were cycling down the present Kengal Hanmantaya road, which is called the double road, on either side you have KSRTC on this side and the complex building. They were all shallow pools of water. Where did that water come from? Sampangi Ramnagar. Where did Sampangi Ramnagar get that water? From Sampangi tank, which is where the stadium is now. Where did that get the water? I'm going backwards. From the Venkatappa Gallery side. The Venkatappa Gallery side, where did it get the water? From the Bal Bhavan or the Victory Hall. The Victory Hall got its water from the Bamboo Grove in Kaban Park. And the Bamboo Grove in Kaban Park got its water from the present Karnataka State Cricket Association, Chinnaswamy Stadium, which was a catchment area. In fact, I would say that, I don't know, I may become controversial if I say that that was not the place for this cricket stadium to come at all. It could have gone to a much bigger place, yard somewhere slightly outside. And that water from there would flow under the Queen's Road. There were gratings there, I remember very well. And it would flow, go to the bamboo. So that's how there was. So there were a lot of pools of water, ponds, can't call them lakes. Lakes were all there, big lakes like Alsur Lake and Lalbagh Lake and Yedur Lake and Marenalli Tank and Wellandur Lake. Those are all lakes. Like that, Bangalore had 300. So therefore, it was started lacking that coolness. The heat of radiation took over. Instead of water bodies and plants and lawns and greens, then we have now macadam tar roads. We have walkways and footpaths which are paved with cement blocks. So naturally, the heat which is absorbed is given out at night. So the whole day you're uncomfortable during the 3 or 4 months of summer. It is not at all Bangalore. And Bangalore was initially called, it had a sobriquet called, was known as the Pensioners' Paradise. Later on, sobriquet changed to the Garden City. And why Garden City? Not just because it had Kaban Park, Lal Bagh and a few other parks. Because each house had a garden. Each bungalow had a garden by itself, all over. You can see, especially in Basavanagudi, Malleshwaram, and all the cantonment areas, all of them had large enough gardens. And then it got the sobriquet of Pub City. quite infamously as Pub City. And then, of course, the much talked about IT tag, which less said the better. That's what it's, I think, the last nail in the coffin. But as far as Bangalore is concerned, I would say. Why? Because it's not so much I'm against technology or industry or employment. But Bangalore just couldn't take the load it had. The infrastructure of Bangalore, I feel, was not enough. Then there was concentration of these newfound, new age businesses and industries. They could have very well moved what they're doing now. They could have done it 20, 25 years ago. Decentralized, take it to Mysore, Mangalore, Dharwad, Hubli, Belgaum, and other places. It should have been done at least 25 years earlier than this. Then, of course, it's quite vibrant. I'm also in the thick of its art and culture part, in the sense I am a visual art aficionado, and I keep going to all the lovely galleries and museums that we have. I don't know how many people are aware that we have the government museum on Kasturba Road, which I think needs more publicity because footfalls are falling down. I heard from somebody that there's a lack of footfalls there. Perhaps even in Chitrakala Parishad we have museum galleries, 13 or 14 of them. I'm the chairman of the museum, being an executive committee member, and I was discussing with my good friend Suresh Jayaram and the curator and the others that we need to increase the footfalls. Do we have a museum culture at all is one of the questions. How to increase it, how to increase the footfalls. And this is what it is now. Yeah, I can say. There was something that I was born with. At home I could see a lot of old company prints, English prints and other things which my grandfather had collected. And that set me thinking. There were also small knickknacks, some porcelains, pottery, crystals, glass, which was all there in our family house. And I grew up with all that. Then later on, I saw my father as one of the district administrators put a museum together in Mangalore called the Srimanti Bai Mirajkar Memorial Museum. So I used to go there, and curiosity. I was more into. I was also went with my earlier days with my father to auctions. Bangalore had some auctioning halls, weekend auctioning halls. The Chester Allen was one of them down MG Road, the intersection of MG Road and Brigade Road, and Ronald Pacheco in Richmond Town or Langford Town, I think, that corner, Alexandra Street. They would have regular auctions on every Sunday morning, forenoon, and people were supposed to come and give their wares, just drop it there. By Friday evening, Saturday would be viewing time, and Sunday would be an open bidding happening. So I've collected quite a number of small, knickknacks, and that set me thinking. When I went abroad for the first time in 1980, I went to a lot of museums in Europe as well as in USA. When I came back, then by chance, I, walked into Chitrakala Parishad, and one of my friends who's a pop art, psychedelic pop and what do you call that? Psychedelic pop, and the other one surrealism. With him, he belonged to the one of those noble families of Rajasthan. He was an artist called Pran Singh Jala. He and I first came into Chitrakala Parishad. Then, after a few visits, I met a lady who was my mentor, Mrs. Sarah Abraham, who gave the impetus for contemporary art in Bangalore with the Kala Yatra. And whatever I could pick up then, the nuances of it, she would guide me. Later on, I became a member of the Chitrakala Parishad. Thanks to Mr. Nanjun Rao, seeing my enthusiasm coming here on and off, he invited me to become a member. I became a member in 1985 or 86. Then I also met good friends here, like Suresh Jayaram, who was a student, and then a faculty member, then a critic, artist, etc. I used to, meet people like Suresh Jayaram, discuss art or cups of coffee and tea, drop into his visual art um, collective. Right? That's what he calls it, number one Shanti Gallery. It was all happening then, but now people, are sort of have distanced a little bit. There was a connect between the artist, the gallery owner, the art critic, and the art crowd, and the art lover, which I don't see now. It's not so cohesive as it was earlier. This is my experience. Yes, I forayed into a lot of galleries. If I went to any place like metropolis like Bombay, Delhi, Calcutta, I would search for art galleries. And in one of those visits to Calcutta perhaps in 1987 or 88, I was walking on a road which was perpendicular to Chaurangi. Suddenly I saw a board called the Calcutta Art Gallery, and on either side of the gate were the name of the house and the name of the owner, and it said Victor Banerjee. So I walked into that, and right in the beginning, at the entrance, the house was, set back, a big bungalow set back in the midst of all this foliage. But there was a kind of a gabled roof, small, garage size, which they had a board called the Calcutta Art Gallery. I walked in, I found one old man sitting there, just going through all Vikash's. I saw a lot of Vikash Bhattacharya's works. I just said, is this for sale? And the man said, yes. And it was at least it was 3 feet by 4 feet, or even a little longer than that. The armless man, Vikash's work sometimes could be, kind of, not all may, relate. But still, as Suresh has noticed, Suresh Jayaram, my likings and tastes or selections were a little unusual. And I asked him the price, and he quoted me a ridiculously low price. I picked it up, 15,000 rupees for a can of oil on canvas. I picked it up. I had that money, a little bit short, but a friend of mine called and he gave me the balance. The next day I was to travel to Bangalore, packed it up with paper, took it to the airport. They won't allow me to pass through the security. It was too big. And I was trying to reason out. Naturally I was one of the last to get through the security because of this kind of discussion. Suddenly the pilot came, the pilots and the stewardess were all going inside. The pilot asked, what is this? I explained to the pilot that this is what it is. He says, don't worry about it. Now leave it here in my custody. I've got a locker here. Tomorrow I'm flying in the same flight. Come and meet me in Bangalore airport. I'll have it for you. So he carried that work on his personal baggage and brought it. So that's one anecdote. I've got plenty of such anecdotes. I went and met Jogin Chaudhary. Then later on I went Vikash Bhattacharya and met. Then, of course, there were great gallery owners like Geeta Mehra and Sharana Parao from Madras. I even know their addresses, 8 Wallace Street, Dadar Namaskar Road. They were all, all those, my pilgrimages. Then I've had a lot of interaction with others who honed my capabilities to appreciate art. So that's how I am. We were traveling a couple of years, 2 years by bus, or 1 year or 2 years by bus, and Madam Jayalalitha those days was a Catonian. She has spent 2 years, and she was living somewhere near the Tata Silk Farm near the end of Basavanagudi. And she would walk down from there, pass our house, and there was the 16 number bus which came opposite the police station, Basavanagudi police station. There was a stop there. She would get on to that, then we would all get down near Cash Pharmacy. There was a stop. I would hop off my Bishop Pond Boys School, my sister Jayalalitha and others would hop off near the Bishop Pond Girls School gate. And I even have a picture, original picture of that class where Miss Mortimer was the class teacher, Jayalalitha and my sister were all staying in that in that picture. I still have the picture. It's in my possession. Grandfather was H.C. Javaraya, who later got the title of awarded was the title of Rao Bahadur by Lord Linlithgow. He was an horticulturist, and he was from the first batch of the Coimbatore Agricultural College those days, and I was told that that was the only agricultural college in India. I'm not too sure about that. From there, and after we graduated, he was a St. Joseph's school boy. Schooling he did in St. Joseph's, and then he went to the Coimbatore Agricultural College. After graduating in agricultural as an agriculturalist graduate, those days it was only LAG. There was no degree also. In those days, degree started much later. Just like Sir M. Vishweshwaraya, I was a diploma holder in civil engineering. So also, he came and joined the service in Mysore state, the princely state of Mysore, which was now under Nalvadi Krishnaraj Vadiyar. And his immediate boss was Gustav Hermann Krumbiegel. And he went up the ladder from there, and then when he retired, when Mr. Krumbiegel retired, my grandfather took over from him as superintendent, later on became a director. My father and his siblings grew up in the Lal Bagh, in the precincts of Lal Bagh, in the Lal Bagh house. And I have stories to tell about that, what I've heard from my grandmother and my father. And he was deputed to, he took over in 1932, but between 1933 and 38, he was deputed to the central government, the then imperial government under British colonial rule in Delhi, as the chief marketing officer, which the department started there, agricultural produce marketing officer of greater India, comprising of parts of Afghanistan, Burma and the present Pakistan. He spent five years there, and he set it up, and as a in appreciation, Lord Linlithgow honored him with the title of Rao Bahadur in 1940. And then he came back in 1938. He was there till 1944, head of Lal Bagh and the government gardens of Mysore. In those days, under the British colonial rule, only certain places in the old princely 9 states of princely Mysore were developed. Mainly attention was given to Bangalore, Mysore, and some of the other hill stations like Kamangundi, Jog Falls, Ooty also, Fernhill, especially the Fernhill part of Ooty, which was the Fernhill part of Ooty was owned by the Vadayars, and he would go there too. And also some of the parks developed under the waterfalls or dams like the KRS Sagar or the Jog Falls, the Shivan Samudram, they all had small little gardens and parks those days. Perhaps they are still there, but I do not know in what condition they are. And Then I have not seen him. When he retired in 1944, but at the age of 55, those days, 55 was the superannuation or retirement age for government servants. Uh, he was not only a Kew Garden trained, he also was a fellow of the Lenient Society and fellow of the Royal Horticultural Society. And he was deputed by Nalvadi Krishnaraj Odeyar to take care of the Mysore gardens, Mysore Palace gardens on 2 or 3 occasions. He spent quite a number of months doing that. He took over from Krumbigal where we had left the KRS gardens. Then he developed the Royal Palace orchards called Madhuvan. Then the Lalitadri Palace on top of Chamundi Hills, and Lalita Mahal and its surroundings, and the Ganjam fig garden, he developed it. It is said that Tipu Sultan first got these figs from Turkey, from his emissaries, but it was in a bad shape, so he was instrumental in developing that, and almost of the fruit orchards, including the fruit research station in Hesarghatta, which has now, of course, become Indian Institute of Horticulture. It's become a huge Indian institute spanning 700 acres. It started in a small way. And he also had his own personal, farm or a fruit orchard outside Bangalore in Uttarahalli. He named it the Happy Valley Estate. He grew, supposed to, because I never saw him. About a year before I was born, he passed away at a young age of 57 of heart attack in Bhopal. Because after retirement, his services were taken by the Namma Ooru Bhopal and the Begum Sahiba of Bhopal as agricultural and horticultural advisor to the state of Bhopal. And he's also spent some time in Bhavanagar as an advisor. Then his fruit orchard, I was told, had all kinds of fruits starting from those days, mangoes, jackfruit, guavas, sapotas, chickus. Also a fruit variety called, an apple variety called the Rome Beauty apple. There might have been 50, 60 apples they were trying to. Mr. Cameroon first got the species. Then something happened. After a long time, Jayawaraya started showing interest in trying to cultivate it in a big way. It is said that four or five horticulturists who were interested in fruit orchards had grown this in their private thing. My grandfather was one of them. Unfortunately, now the Rome Beauty apples, you don't see them anymore. It's gone. The species is not there. They're trying to revive it. One of the reasons an old horticulturist of the Obalappa family told me was that the reason was that transportation improved between Delhi and Himachal, between Kashmir, Himachal and southern states. So apples started coming in much quicker. There was beautiful, juicy apples from those areas started coming in. So the Bangalore Rome Beauty apples were small in size, a little sour, not as sweet as them. So it died a natural death. So there was no market for it. And then my father took over. He was a botany student. Then he joined the government, the civil services. He showed interest in some of this, but he was, what can I say? Maybe I don't know whether I can use that to edit it. He's not as flamboyant as my grandfather. Okay, and he was a very quiet person. He held some important posts. Some of them was like the commissioner of Bangalore City Corporation and the City Improvement Trust Board, which is now upgraded to BDA, Bangalore Development Authority. And there is a locality of the end of Banashankari, which is named after my father, Padmanabha. We didn't own that patch of land. None of our family members have got even one single small site there. It's just it's named Padmanabhanagar by some group of people who started that as a housing society, Jayanagar Housing Society, perhaps in gratitude for some help that he had done earlier. And when somebody asked me how many sites, I heard that you have 17 sites in Padmanabhanagar. My immediate reply was, does Mahatma Gandhi's great-grandchildren have how many sites in Mahatma Gandhi Road? I do not know the reason. I've been telling people this could be the reason.
Okay.
Did you all know that Suresh Jayaram was an excellent bonsai specialist?
Yes,
I know he has an interest, but
Yeah.
no idea.
You see, there is one person in the end of Basavanagudi, starting of JC Road, Srinivas of Bonsai.
Okay.
Bonsai, we used to call him Bonsai Srinivas. He had started classes there, and then my wife started attending the bonsai classes. And there, this youngster was showing great interest, and he was doing the best of the works. So, in memory of my father and my late sister, I instituted 2 rolling shields. One was, a silver rolling shield made by Bartons, and the other one was a sculpture brass of a tree. I don't know where it is. That was beautiful. I still want to possess that, which was worked by I think Babu Ishwar Prasad and yourself, and Suresh Jayaram. I think he won both of them, because 3 times, if one consecutively wins the bonsai prize in the exhibition, they get to own it. I don't know whether Suresh has that in. I don't know where.
Returned it back to the club.
Oh, okay. Right. And so Suresh's foray into bonsai yielded much results, and now he doesn't like to talk about it for some reason.
There is no reason.
There is a reason I attribute, is that he had kept all his bonsai works on his compound. Then the house belonged to his mother. Next morning, none of them were there. I think that sort of put him off, and he stopped talking about bonsai after that.
I just
I
moved on.
seeing only one, but then I know about the Ikamana.
No, we have those days. We have 4 or 5 still made by this ficus variety and all that. Then, of course, I met Suresh, and he joined the Chitrakala Parishad. I used to know Suresh even before he joined. And I used to come and meet him.
When I was 18 years old or something. 18.
And I was.
that photo that we showed in the morning. Oh,
But, why?
So I was 18 years old.
Yeah,
you should see his picture. There is
first PUC or something.
And my interest was so much that, somehow we hit it off, though there's an age difference. When Suresh went to Baroda to do his masters there, I happened to go one day to Baroda for an overnight stay. I went to Suresh's room, pulled him out, and I think we had chat together that evening. So this was a story about it.
So the reason of me meeting Harish is through his wife, Jaya. And I think we meet more often than I meet his wife.
Yeah. And of course, whenever he wants to have the South Indian breakfast specialities like idli, vade, dosa, that he comes to that part of town. Sometimes we go out together.
That used to be.
And sometimes we are all, by the way, all are welcome any day.